Hello, everyone. We're going to give it a few minutes to let all the attendees come through. Jarrett, I like that you're living the brand, drinking the brewed coffee on the road as well.
Always. We joked a lot, especially in the earlier days when it was really just a 24-hour venture where there was no sleep. It was either cleaning kegs, washing kegs, selling kegs, brewing kegs, and everybody kind of, did one of those things. And there was only three of us, so there wasn't a lot of time to sleep. And we joked that without the product, there's no way we could have ever actually started a business. We were just basically drinking coffee to stay energized and wake up every single day.
Awesome. Love it.
No, I actually grabbed a Rise myself. I got the London
Nice.
Fog here.
The new one.
Squares, so yeah.
All right, man.
Well, if I wasn't in an empty apartment that I had abandoned during COVID, I'd probably be better stocked.
The London Fog is a cool one for us. That's our first tea, and 20% of our sales in our cafes had always been one of our tea products, whether it was a Earl Grey latte or a dirty chai. We did a lot of chai tea stuff as well, and that's the first one that we launched a couple weeks ago, and so far it's going really well. Cool thing about it too is it only has 25 milligrams of caffeine. So people ask us all the time if we're going to do a decaf version, and decaf is about 20 to 40 milligrams of caffeine, which most people don't know. So that's actually doubles as our first kind of low caf offering too.
Awesome. Well, great. Well, let's go ahead and get started. For all of the attendees, thank you all so much for joining and being part of the conversation. For some of those who've been following the webinar since it originated, we have had a last minute change, but I'm very excited to have Jarrett here today. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and do introductions. First of all, my name is Laura Meyer. For those who don't know me, I am the founder and CEO of Envision Horizons. We are a e-commerce management and strategy firm that specializes in Amazon, but we also do Walmart as well. And very excitingly today, we are co-hosting this webinar with Jordan Buckner from Foodbevy. And with that, I will pass the torch and let you introduce yourself.
Appreciate it, Laura. So for those of you that don't know me out there, my name is Jordan Buckner, co-founder, CEO of TeaSquares, which is a line of superfood energy bites. And then also in the last year, launched a new venture, foodbevy.com, which is an online community for food and beverage founders to collaborate and share resources to help us all work together to get from startup to scale. And then I also kind of through that as well, help smaller brands get started on Amazon, and as well as, Amazon's a huge platform for my brand as well.
And next we have Jarrett.
Hey, everybody. I'm Jarrett McGovern. I am a co-founder of Rise Brewing Co. We are a nitro cold brew coffee company that is now launching teas and oat milk. But I think one thing that we always land on is our mission to create the best tasting beverages using the best ingredients we can possibly source. Our mission started in a kitchen, and we were brewing coffee for our friends, family, and future wives and future kids. And we wanted to create a product that tasted really good and was made with really, 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 really good ingredients, and especially a drink that you drink every day like coffee. We wanted to make sure that you were fueling yourself up with really good ingredients, and it was going to help you attack the day better and live longer.
Awesome. Well, thank you again for both of you participating. So let's kick things off. And I know that the grocery, food, and beverage category has been very interesting the last 6 months. And I would love to get your take on why you think now is the time to really take advantage of the e-commerce space, and maybe what you've been doing personally with your companies.
Yeah, I can kick off on that. So in looking at e-commerce and the rise, one thing is that food and beverage has always lagged behind other categories like electronics, fashion, even, and home goods. And a lot of that comes down to a lot of people, when you think of fresh vegetables, you want to touch and feel what's out there, but even for CPG products, there's still that notion of getting the freshest product available and going to the grocery store to do so. I think what's really accelerated through COVID is the adoption of e-commerce for the food space, and even beyond CPG, such as fresh food as well, as everyone is starting to at least get some type of order from home or order and pick up at the store, and it's making a huge impact. And so now being August, it's interesting to see which brands kind of saw initial, COVID bump, as some people are calling it, in the months of March and April. Some of those categories have flattened out, other categories have continued to grow. And it's from my kind of seat, I can see with TeaSquares, my brand, the energy set, but then also about 15 other food and beverage brands that I work with. And some have seen a continued boost in categories, a lot of like pantry staples and more kind of common items that a larger mass audience is looking for. And other brands who might have more specialty or niche products, some have seen a rise and others have kind of flatlined or kind of get into a new normal sales range as they continue to grow. And so it's interesting because things are still shaking out from what I can see all over the place.
Yeah, Jordan, I love how you said that. That brings me back to all the investor meetings we had in 2015, 16, 17, and 18, 19. And one thing that everybody's looking out for is, well, what's the future? How are you going to grow? How are you going to, really hit more consumers? And for us, making a great tasting product using incredible ingredients is part of it. But, that is only half the battle. You have to figure out how to change consumer mindset. And one thing that we said is a lot of times people would go into a grocery store and they would expect, similar to what you said, to grab the freshest thing off the shelf. So if they grabbed one can of Rise off the grocery shelf, in their heads, that was the same mentality as getting produce and grabbing that fresh banana or fresh orange or fresh tomato. They thought that would be the freshest one, but as it turns out, depending on the born on date, our coffee actually stays deliciously fresh for a year and a half. So why only grab one? But that was the mindset. RTD coffee's relatively new, especially high quality RTD coffee. So what we had always done as, co-founders and brewers and salesmen is we've always had hundreds of cans in our garages. And when we would run low, to us, like, you're only down to 20 cans, we go back to the brewery, we pick up another few cases. It's the same thing as when people buy bottled water. When you buy bottled water, you don't go in and just buy one bottled water at a time. You buy a case. And then when that case gets low, then you buy another case. And for us, because our product is shelf stable, which we'll get into the second part of this, the best way to do that is to buy in bulk. You get the best deals, and you go to the grocery store less. And I think COVID has changed that now with people, as people are now buying everything more in bulk. So the consumer mindset is to now buy that in bulk. So rewind a little bit, and I won't be too long, but when we first launched our cans were not shelf stable. So we worked really, really hard for a couple of years to figure out how we could have the same great taste with the shelf stable product versus what we were brewing that had to be refrigerated. We knew that was the future, not only to deal with distributors in beer, which are moving the most weight, but also to be able to have grocery stores and retail stores be able to store extra inventory, not in a refrigerator, because refrigerated space is so tight. So now fast forward to what COVID's doing, and it's sped up the mentality of a consumer to now start buying more things online and buying more things in bulk. So that's been kind of a huge, huge win for us. Our sales numbers are the highest they've ever been. We've lost certain aspects of the market. Our keg business is really low, but our digital sales are really high. So now our focus is how can we pour gas, how can we pour nitro into growing our digital buy in bulk side of our business.
Fantastic. And Jordan, I want to follow up on a point that you brought up, which is that some categories continue to see growth and some subcategories have somewhat plateaued now that stores have started to open up and consumers are back in brick and mortar. Can you give any insight into what categories you think are really going to benefit from this versus others where they've seen that plateau, but there's obviously still growth in the overall e-commerce sector.
Yeah, so on the categories that have seen a big rise, they tend to be pantry staples, but even in our spaces, like better for you pantry staples. So like monk fruit sweeteners, erythritol sweeteners, they're kind of playing into the keto area as well. Those tend to be doing very well instead of just like your normal flours or sugars. People are still baking at home. A lot of kind of at-home baking kits and especially around like keto, that's been a huge buying trend, and that's just continued to rise, especially the DIY keto kits. Snacks in general, like more of a broad consumer-based snacks have really grown. I think one thing that's interesting overall to think is that the area of the market that's really increased on Amazon has been that if you think about like the product adoption curve, a lot of mainstream consumers have now entered. And so brands that have kind of higher awareness have seen a much larger boost in sales kind of across categories, especially in kind of the snacking set as well, because people are familiar with the brand, so you don't have to educate them on it. Brands that are doing, or in categories that are kind of, have some boost, but not a huge one. I'll even talk about like energy bars and protein bars, or that some of the most popular bars, so your Cliffs and Kind bars, they've kind of seen this increase in sales because they're in that mainstream sector. But a lot of brands who are more specialty or niche on the kind of protein or energy bar sector have not seen as huge of a boost. And that's because a lot of the eating occasion is grab and go when you're out and about, when you're working out or post or pre-workout routines, or even when you're like at your desk at an office and don't have convenient foods around because you don't have your kitchen with you. And so those categories, depending on the business, have seen like some boost to get to this level set, but have not seen like a tremendous in growing just because the eating occasion and the buying occasion has changed.
Awesome.
Yeah, one that you didn't mention, Jordan, but that fits into everything that you're saying is oat milk.
Yeah.
I read some stat that I think the things that have grown the most since COVID have been oat milk and hand sanitizer. We timed our launch, I wouldn't say perfectly, because I think we missed COVID by the beginning part of the bulk up stage, which was the highest peak by a couple months, but we did launch our oat milk about a month ago. And one of the reasons why I think you're seeing such a big boost of oat milk sales is the shelf stability once again. And the fact that if you're buying dairy milk, oat milk is probably what tastes the most like dairy milk. So it hits the taste buds for a traditional dairy drinker. But when you're trying to bulk up on dairy milk, you have to put it all in the refrigerator. When you're bulking up on oat milk, it can last for 6-8 months in the cabinet and in a basement and not in a refrigerator. So a lot of those products, similar to the other ones you mentioned, and the granola bars and stuff like that, being able to buy in bulk and being able to easily store it is really important. One thing that you touched on too is something that as an emerging brand, we are always trying to now figure out is we spend a lot of our money and sampling efforts doing events so we could sample our product to people, because the best way to get them to switch from one of those known brands you were discussing is to like the taste of ours better and then see it in a store and see it's equally priced or less priced or whatever, or it's got some benefits like it's organic versus not organic. But a lot of our early adopters were driven by sample, trying, testing, tasting. That's a lot harder to do right now in COVID. So we're trying to figure out a lot of ways, whether it's in marketing or videos or social media, stuff like that, to show our product, show how delicious it is, get people's mouths salivating, and kind of focus on all the different benefits of the taste, because that's the one thing that's been really, really hard for brands to do is to actually get people to try it and taste it.
Hey, Jarrett, one question around that too. So beverage is a really interesting category set on e-commerce, especially Amazon, because the weight, as everyone knows, just makes beverage really expensive to ship, and especially if you have to ship in cases. But especially I saw in 2018, beverage was like one of the #1 categories actually on Amazon from brands that they sold. Now, a lot of that was like water cases and came from the stock up mentality of like, I don't want to carry cases of water home, but if I can get it delivered to my door, why not? What has the experience been around with Rise and selling beverage on Amazon? And, how does that kind of play into discovery? Are you priced to be profitable every sale or like have that, or are you priced to really drive trial? What's been your strategy?
Good question. There was a lot of discussion about what to do via Amazon early on. We all knew we wanted to be on it. Some easy early decisions are when you are launched on Amazon, should you also be available on your website? And like we would look at companies like Nike and Apple and stuff like that did have, both, were available on both. And that became an easy decision and a really good one. The second part of it is how much do you want to sell, to your point? Do you want to have like a loss leader size so that you can drive trial and get something more in bulk? We decided to go with bulk. As soon as we became shelf stable was when we decided to get on Amazon. At first we were selling kegs. That wasn't good to be on Amazon for that. They weren't shelf stable. And it cost a lot to ship them with weight and having to refrigerate it. So we couldn't do that. But then when we got to cans, our cans weren't shelf stable either. And so we thought about, ice packs, and we looked at all these other different ways to keep the cans cold. But that becomes really hard in terms of trying to make a profit, because then it becomes really expensive. You have to speed up the time in which you ship it, and then you got to create a better packaging for it. So for us, when we became shelf stable, we said, okay, well, what's the size that we're making money on? And is also a good deal to the consumers where they're getting a bulk discount. And, it's easy for them to order because it's not too much, and you can drive trial, which is what you're saying. So for us, we landed on a 12 pack, and that was something that made us money. We explored a 4-pack. We talked about 1 or 2, but it really just didn't make sense at the time. However, nothing is like an ultimate answer. I think if COVID keeps going on, we're going to have to re-explore ways to answer the questions of people that I saw you drinking the London Fog. And we've now had a lot of people, whether it's on our website, whether it's on Amazon, whether it's on social media, say, I love this drink. Where can I buy one? And because they can't buy one they've tried a London Fog from somewhere else and they want to try ours, but they don't want to spend, and buy a 12-pack. So we've got to figure out unique ways to reach them. We do have like variety packs and stuff like that. And we can give them potentially promo codes, hit us up offline, send us a DM if they're really passionate about it. We don't want to not be able to have someone who wants to try our product, who could be a customer for life, not want to purchase it because it might be either too expensive on the upfront purchase or, too big of a leap of faith.
Awesome. And, I do want to talk about the concept of a loss leader within the grocery category on Amazon, because I know it's definitely a strategy a lot of brands will take, while others are very, very conscious of what their bottom line is with Amazon because of not only the logistics, but also the fees associated with Amazon's referral fee, the cost of advertising. And so what are your opinions on having some type of loss leader that is a variety pack, or something where you can basically do digital sampling now that you can't be at grocery stores and other in-person events passing out samples?
Yeah. So on TeaSquares, that was one decision that we made, is actually creating a trial pack on our website, where we normally sell a 12-pack of bars for $19.99. But consumers who just want to like jump in and get an initial taste to see if they like it could buy a trial pack. And we essentially pitched it as just covering shipping. And then that way we could have a lower price item where they're paying like $3.50 or so for 3 bars, and get those delivered to their home. And I think that's enabled us to do a lot more digital sampling. On the downside, there's a lot of like packaging that gets shipped out. We actually have our own warehouse we're able to ship from. So we were able to like manage that and ship kind of less than case size. It wasn't too difficult. But I think on Amazon, it's interesting because I have seen some brands start to do things where they might offer, because like Jarrett, I saw your 12 packs are, $25 to $29. And you might offer like a 2 or 4 pack where the price per unit might be almost, double what it is in the 12 pack, but maybe it's like $10 or $15. And so like if you were just buying a single bottle, it wouldn't be economical, but maybe like just to taste it for your first time. I've seen brands kind of price it so they're essentially breaking even on those sales, encouraging then if the customer wants to buy the full size and actually get a like normal or discounted case price, then they can upgrade to the larger size. But have you kind of seen that, Jared or Laura? Have you seen that with other clients that you've worked with?
I have, and it's an ongoing conversation because I think it's something that our hearts wanted us to figure out a year ago, and now our heads might need to figure it out in this day and age, because it was easier to say, you know what, I mean, at our heights in the summertime, we do coast to coast 5 to 10 events a week, maybe more, and some big ones, 80,000 people at Gov Ball, or like Bumper Shoot, and outside of a Yankee game or a Met game or a marathon or all that kind of stuff. So to us, that was how we were driving that sample and creating that ROI in our head of spending money to drive trial. Trial will hopefully lead to a love for the product, and then customer for life, and then money comes, money and sales come after that. That is not what this summer looked like. And there was a part of this boom of oat milk that we were very fortunate to be a part of. There was a part of not wanting to go to Starbucks, and which we were a part of. One of the big things that happened is so many people are used to drinking coffee at their office, and they could no longer go in their office and get coffee. So we were a part of that too. So we said, let's create, like, for all the offices that we know, and let's cold call thousands of them as well. Let's create codes similar to what you're saying, similar to what you mentioned, Laura, which it was not a loss leader, but certainly not as profitable as we had been, where it's like, 35% to 50% off whatever coffee you're buying for this certain amount of time for your specific office. So they knew that it was something that made them feel good about the connection that they had with Rise previously, because they might have been drinking Rise at their office. And it was something for us that we could keep fueling them. But it was definitely not as much money as we've made on other things. Now, I don't know what the future looks like. I personally am pretty bearish on whether or not we're going to have a vaccine and get back to normal. We've had some firsthand look at that with our distributors that distribute office coffee and supplies, and what they're going through, to our actual office managers, to the offices. It's not looking good. And that's a great place for a coffee brand to drive trial. So we're going to have to figure it out. I think, are we open to a loss leader to drive sample and trial? 100%. Does that look like shipping one can online at a time? No, but if we could figure it out, where it's part of a bundle, and maybe if it's part of, like, we're going to do something with like Snack Nation and some other places where you're going to get a variety pack of 5 or 6 brands that are all shipping something out, and our can is in that package, because we can ship 5 things, 6 things in that box, whereas it's a granola bar, bag of potato chips, of coffee, and so on and so forth. And we are doing a bunch of those right now with like back to school stuff. We're working with in 4 different regions. We're working with companies that are doing kind of variety pack stuff for back to school kids. And I think as we collaborate together, we're all in this together, whether it's our fellow competitive coffee companies, like if people are buying ready to drink coffee, a rising tide lifts all ships. They're getting used to doing that instead of going to a cafe or going to Dunkin' Donuts, and understanding that this is more convenient and is higher, can be in our case, higher quality, at a very fair price, more convenient, and you could have it more in bulk. So yeah, long story short, we're exploring it all, and we're certainly open to more of a loss leader to drive sample and trial.
Yeah, and just to speak on that as well, I'm a huge advocate of using Amazon as a customer acquisition channel, which is why we very strongly advise a lot of our clients to have those variety packs, to have those sub $20 grocery price points. And a lot of that as well is, we want to not only test it, we've actually built our own analytics tool software internally. So we're then really able to closely look at, okay, what are the intervals between purchase number 1 and purchase number 2? What are those repurchase rates looking like? What's the LTV of your Amazon consumer? Because you get 12 months down the road and you're actually able to see, okay, this ASIN or the specific SKU was able to then cause this halo effect across the brand. And I think it's very important for brands that are either just starting out or emerging to have something where the price point and the value that the consumer will receive is a no-brainer. If you're selling a superfood gourmet granola bar, you don't want the consumer to be like, well, I don't want to spend $30-$40 on a large bundle when I can just go buy Cliff Bar or something else. So we put a very big emphasis on the ability for consumers to test, because with Amazon, the advantage of being on the platform is acquiring those incremental consumers. In a lot of way, when you have those large bulk purchases, you're there for convenience for those consumers who already know you. So with that, I mean, I think it's definitely getting interesting now. Amazon's still pushing their Amazon Small and Light program, but it's still hard to be profitable even with those prices. So I'll be curious to see how grocery brands shift as I think, Jarrett, I think you're right. I think people will still be a little hesitant. I got an invitation for a conference that's supposed to happen in February, and I laughed to myself because I don't think that's going to be happening in person.
I don't think so either. I mean, flu season's going to come up, and that's going to, I don't know, who knows? Doesn't sound like it's going to get better, but I'm no doctor, which I feel like I've said 45 times a month these days. But yeah, no, I think driving that small, driving it more so, not just driving the small trial where the customer doesn't have to pay that much for it, but also creating happy customers on Amazon, because the ratings and the reviews are so important too. So we spend so much time receiving emails from people or comments and responding and trying to make sure that they can have the best Rise experience possible and like love our brand as much as we do. So if they got something that they didn't like for some reason, well, we'll resend that to them and send them another one that they might like better. They might not like black coffee. They might like coffee with milk in it, and therefore we'll send them a classic milk. They might not like dairy milk. They might like oat milk. We'll send them an oat milk. But I think you want to just say, like, we are here for you. This is like as much of a local, like, kind of mom and pop shop as we can be. You walk into a mom and shop pop back like when we grew up, or when I grew up at least, and if you didn't like something, they wanted to make sure they found what it was that you did like. And as brands, we all want to make sure that the reviews on Amazon are high and the ratings are high, because that's one of the ways you get seen. So yeah, I mean, like creating those kind of sample opportunities that are creating happy customers. And a lot of times you're not going to get a happy customer if they can only buy a 36 pack and then they order it and they buy it and they spend all that money on it and they try one sip and they're like, damn, this isn't for me. So trying to figure out how you can create happy customers too is another good currency.
For sure. And no doubt that whatever category you're in, the higher the price point of the SKU or the ASIN, the more critical consumers can be when it comes to leaving reviews. If they spent $10, they're a lot more inclined, if they had a negative experience, to just move on with their life versus if they spent $50.
100%.
And I think another thing, just to go off the variety and the sample type strategy, to also really highlight is that at the end of the day, Amazon is a search engine. And when you have a lower priced item that has higher sales velocity, that is then going to perform and produce a higher BSR or bestseller ranking. And that in return also helps give you better visibility organically. And I think that's another really big thing to keep in mind is not only are you trying to acquire these new customers and have that positive customer experience. But at the end of the day, you should be on Amazon to get in front of as many new consumers as possible. And those lower price entry SKUs are going to be the way to do that, not only in getting more conversions, but then you have the flywheel effect of more conversions, higher visibility, new consumers, and so forth.
Yeah, Laura, that's kind of interesting because one thing that I've learned by working with various companies as well and exploring Amazon is that there's a huge range of goals that you or any brand can have on Amazon, and it's important to be extremely clear about like why you're on the platform. And that's why it's so different than a lot of other like grocery stores or even your own e-commerce to some degree, because on Amazon you almost have representation from like most of the buying market in the US. And so you can take an approach where you're trying to drive trial and maybe do so the way where you're not as profitable or losing a little, you know, breaking even, but you can set up your products and assortment like for that. And then there's also the range where you might want to, you know, if you have a heavy product, you might want to just have bulk cases and you want to move every product profitably. And there's a whole range in between. You can get a ton of data on like who the customers are who are like buying your product, like what are the reviews, what are they saying about your product, like what relationships are you building with them. I know there's like a context that, or a belief that like a lot of the interactions on Amazon are anonymous because you don't get their email addresses, which is true, but there's a lot of other touch points that you can have to really understand like who that Amazon shopper is, why they're buying, what are they saying about your product, and like who's coming back to it. And so it's really interesting to like set your expectations on Amazon to like what you want to accomplish from it. And that way you can be sure to make sure you're getting out of it, because there's a lot of like negative connotations around Amazon too. A lot of people jump on and they're like, oh my gosh, I'm going to lose like a ton of money based on how I set the products up. How do I make money by doing this?
Yeah, there's no question that there's what I like to call, you know, the proactive brands on Amazon, where they're looking to be the top in their subcategory or overall category. And then there's the other companies where they care about the profitability and not necessarily the market share of, okay, I'm having this as convenience, but I actually want people to purchase through my website because I already have this loyal consumer base. So I guess to follow up with that, I mean, what are some of the biggest challenges either you face personally or that you're seeing other grocery brands running into on Amazon right now, and what they might have to do to overcome those issues?
Jordan, one thing that you said before is the big brands are getting bigger right now because people are not going into grocery stores quite as much. They're not, interacting with what some call the challenger brands like us, like where we're challenging to be as big as Starbucks or whatever. So they're not tasting us as much. They're not hearing about us as much. They don't see us as much. And they're buying in bulk to stock up for, COVID days. And they don't want to take a lot of chances. So one of the challenges for all of us is to figure out how we can, reach customers and make them want to take a chance on us. One thing that we're doing is we're doing a lot. Our social media, our marketing efforts right now are changing in a way to show the juice to get people salivating as much as possible. It's like if you look at a Mac computer and you look at their advertisements, it's digital renderings. Every business is different. They do a great job making something look clean, but it's a digital rendering. It's a computer doing a 360 against a white screen. If you had a can doing that same thing, and it's a cartoonish digital rendering, it's not going to make you want to drink it. But if you see coffee getting poured into a glass and you can hear it and you can see the cascading happening, and the can has like perspiration on it, it drives an emotion out of you to say, okay, like I want that right now, and I'm thirsty. I need energy. I want that. So we're changing a lot of what we're doing to fit that, to then help drive sales and awareness on Amazon and to get it so that people say, I'm salivating. I want that. Where can I find it? Secondly, we're exploring things that we had not explored before, like billboards. So like more traditional advertising type things, and doing the same thing where we make it look so refreshing. But we now have a bunch of billboards. We're doing more things that we hadn't done before with our marketing budget that would be considered kind of traditional. But now we're spending that money now to now drive sales to Amazon. In addition to buying up keywords and doing marketing on Amazon and stuff like that. I think we're looking more into like old school traditional ways to reach people, to then drive the new school of digital sales.
I think that's huge in terms of the like appetite appeal, because at the end of the day, we're selling food, we're selling drinks, we're selling stuff you have to consume. And the number one like variable that determines if people buy almost any food product is taste. Like across the board, if it doesn't taste good, like unless it's going to, cure some disease, which you can't even say, like, people are going to buy based on the taste of your product. And so that needs to be first and foremost. And it gets lost a lot of times, especially when you're doing things like setting up Amazon pages. And like one mistake that I see a lot is that brands will set up very kind of boilerplate information on Amazon and their product won't sell. And it doesn't have that taste appeal where, someone needs to, if they're landing on your product page, they need to be able to understand like what your product is, why it's going to be a good fit for them and their lifestyle. And a huge part of that is going to be like the taste, the colors, the brightness, and being able to showcase that to a consumer. They're like, wow, I got to have this. Yep. The other thing that happens a lot and happened with my brand when I started out with TeaSquares is like Amazon has fees, right? There's a monthly professional seller fee. There's a referral fee between 8 and 15% of your sales. There's then your like FBA fees. There's a lot of these fees that build up where brands think like, oh, I'm not making any money because if you price a product at, $15, your price is like $8 or $10 per unit, and then you have all the Amazon fees built up on top of it, you're going to like barely break even or probably lose money. And so that's why it's important to understand like what case size you're selling, what's going to be your profitability. Anyone that knows Elliot Began talks a lot about like waterfalls. So understanding like what's your selling price, and then what are all the fees that are associated that fall under below that, to make sure that at the end of the day, after everything, including advertising, if you want to be profitable, that you are profitable on those sales. The good thing about Amazon is they're actually fairly transparent with all the things you have to pay. So you can go in and calculate exactly what's that going to be, give or take, 5% for returns and spoilage and things like that. So you can really understand like where your product fits in on Amazon, and how do you build those case packs and variety packs to actually sell your product better on there.
Awesome. Well, I want to transition into questions. So everyone who's attending, there's a little Q&A icon in the lower right-hand corner, a little bit to the right, not all the way. And so feel free to submit some questions there, or also the chat box works as well. One of the questions that came up from an anonymous attendee goes back to the point about not being able to reach customers in person, and how are you reaching consumers online and shifting, whether you mentioned Jarrett buying billboards for the first time, but where are you seeing the, where are you seeing success? Is it social? Is it doing these variety packs? What's working right now from what you're seeing?
So it's a really good question. And it's obvious, it's what we talk about every day. So, including this morning, an hour ago. I think we are definitely looking at traditional kind of more radio, TV, billboards, parking garages, kind of signs on there too. One thing that we've noticed for everybody who's listening out there is that the prices have been a lot better than they were a year ago for that stuff. So I think because there's more trades happening in those industries, and at one point in time, they were probably reaching some people that probably aren't doing very well right now. So they've got to find a new customer. There's a lot of brands that are doing better, but there's a transition period for them. So we've been able to actually get really good deals on some of these things that were a little bit pricey for us before. And we've seen really good ROI in terms of our digital sales and just in terms of outreach from customers sending us pictures of different things that we're doing. Collaborations are huge, as everybody knows, but finding the right ones, people that really do enjoy your brand, not just people that have a big following. It's better to have somebody with 20,000 followers that loves Rise Coffee than 20 million that doesn't, and they'll just be like, oh, here's a coffee brand and I'm me. Okay, on to my next thing. You know, like you actually get a lot more engagement by doing a little research on your own and seeing if they like it. And part of that has been a big strategy for us as well, is we do have our numbers where we want to hit. How many people are we sampling? So whenever we go into an event, we say, okay, that event has 10,000 people. The ages of the people are X to Y. The time of the event is X to Y. How many cans do we generally go through during these kind of events? You know, and we've done one like that before. Here's how many we went through during that event. So we can expect a similar result here. And it gets down to how many people have we sampled. And then at the end of the day, it's how many cases have we sold. Without doing those events, we're spending more time now looking at different influencers to seed product to. We are looking at places in need that people need coffee. We gave away over 100,000 cans to first responders, whether it was hospitals, doctors, firemen, police, the whole thing. But really mostly like, you know, we went into hospitals and we dropped off care packages for them. And I would imagine we converted a lot of doctors and nurses to Rise coffee drinkers that had not heard of us before. So go in places that fit your brand. Where are people actually drinking coffee? What influencers really love your product? And then how can you give them as much ammunition as possible? That's what we've done at this point in time.
Jordan, do you have anything to add to that?
Yeah, the only thing I would add is that, and I suffer from a personal bias that I want all of my marketing spend to be trackable. And it's really hard for me to invest in things where I can't calculate the return, especially as a smaller brand. And so what I always recommend brands do is find those marketing avenues that are as trackable as possible. Things like there can be some ad spend. Email marketing is always really great to your existing customers during refer a friend programs. Like one of the best things that you can do is identify who already loves your product and who can be an advocate for you and encouraging them to promote your product on your behalf. So instead of just putting out a 50% coupon to the world, you might go to your best customers and say, hey, if you refer someone to our brand, you know, you'll get free product and they get free product, or something where you can really encourage that word of mouth. Tends to have a better conversion rate than not. I think what Jarrett is doing, and once your company gets to a larger size, when you have distribution and more retail presence, you have a much larger e-commerce space, trial can do, like, just trial in the world can do a lot to drive traffic. You don't need to measure every piece of it. But I always say, make sure you are taking full advantage of all the trackable marketing spend first before you go to those other areas.
And so we have another question that just popped up. So Jordan, maybe if you can also speak to what has really worked for you personally on Amazon. I'm also happy to touch on this as well.
So Amazon is really great for TeaSquares. So in our best months, Amazon does about 10 to 15 times the revenue than we see on our own e-com site. And a lot of that's just from traffic, but also from the increased conversion on Amazon. If someone's shopping on Amazon, they are most likely looking to buy something, whether it's your product or not. They will leave Amazon buying multiple products. And on our product page, we were optimizing it so that we actually have a conversion rate of, between 18 and 25, 30% on any given day of people that land on our product pages that actually buy. And so really focusing on, delivering what's the right content on your page so that you're educating a consumer through the entire journey so that they know if this is for them or not, so that they can actually make a purchase decision really quickly. That's really effective. And the next layer up is driving traffic to that page. So optimizing and using Amazon's marketing services can be really impactful, understanding like what keywords people are looking for to actually find your product. the one thing I always tell brands is that Amazon is a great microcosm for understanding if your product is in demand or not. And so and Laura, we were talking about this the other day too, right? Like if you search for, like our products in the energy bar set. And so if you search for energy bars, there's obviously a huge competition for energy bars and lots of competitors. If you search caffeinated energy bars, then there's less so there. And so it's not as big of a market, but we have a better reason to win in that market. And so we kind of highlight and capitalize on those keywords that are more targeted to what we actually do on the TeaSquares side. And so there are other partners that I worked with where there's just not a market that's developed or a demand out there yet. And that's just to say that you will have to do more education off of Amazon to teach people about your product, but they still might ultimately go on the platform and search for your brand to buy it. And so it's really understanding where your brand kind of fits into the larger consumer demand mindset and then optimizing your approach based on that.
We were just discussing what has worked for Jordan's brand on Amazon, and if there's anything that has stood out to you as really revolutionizing your ability to stand out on the platform.
For us, it's been a combo of telling a really good story, and it gets back into that using Amazon as our kind of cafe to the world, as our mom and pop shop. Here's our story. Here's who we are. Here's why we're doing what we're doing. Crafting a really good story where people can feel like they're finding out about you and your brand. So we tell a story on our Amazon pages. We show what the benefits of our product is, versus others. So as people are saying, well, I've never heard of this company, but it keeps showing up because we're doing a good job on our ad spend and our keywords. So I'm going to take a chance on it, but who are they? And so we use our Amazon page to kind of tell our story, inform people, let them into our world, show them our product in action, as we're pouring it, what it actually looks like outside of the can, which I really think is important for beverages, especially ones that are in a can and not a glass bottle. But yeah, I think for us, like, customer service has been something that everybody probably would think they should do really well, but we spend a ton of time doing as amazingly awesome as we can at it. We're always really quick to respond to comments. We respond both to positive and negative comments. And if there's a negative comment, we figure out why. If somebody got a defective can because something happened in shipping, we make sure immediately they get a fresh 12-pack, they get a hat, they'll get a discount code. So a lot of times, I think it's the simple things, it's the easy things, the little things that people go in thinking they're going to be really good at, but we actually have dedicated people to make sure that our customer service is really good.
Awesome. Yeah, and Jordan, I think your point earlier, when it comes to Amazon, having a keyword strategy is crucial, especially if you are a new and emerging company. There's larger brands that can just ride the wave of their brand awareness and the fact that they're on every end cap in Whole Foods and wherever. But if you're so, like, you really hit the nail on the point that if there aren't searches for your product directly, so like, let's say you have a keto granola bar for children that's nut and gluten-free, like very, very specific. It's going to be very difficult to then try and compete in the keto granola bar because now majority of your audience is not going to want the bar because you've positioned it for children. And I'm just making this up on a whim. But when it comes to evaluating if Amazon is a good channel for you, and if you want to invest the time and resources, starting with keywords is one of the best places to look.
One thing that we do with that keyword search is a lot of times we look at Google Analytics and see what's trending on Google. Yeah. And a lot of times that'll show you what is then also going to be or will be soon trending on Amazon as well.
Yeah, one of my favorite things to do on Google Trends is to actually, instead of just searching a single term, you do it in comparison to other terms. So I think we looked at the search volume for like vegan, vegetarian, and like gluten-free and keto, and keto searches were like 15 times everything else. And it just like puts the scale of what people are looking at in perspective. Laura, I don't know if you had like just a minute or two to run through like some of the features on Amazon that a lot of like marketing features that brands might not fully utilize. So things like coupons, social media discounts, there's like posts that you can do on Amazon using their marketing services, attribution, like some of those things are just people don't always know about.
Yeah, absolutely. So in terms of tools that we use a ton is Amazon Brand Analytics. And so if you have a Seller Central and you don't have access to Amazon Brand Analytics, I believe as long as you're brand registered, all you have to do is actually just submit a case to Amazon and you should be able to get access to that within 48 hours or 72 hours. They're a little pokey right now with every request, it seems. But the data that Amazon is now providing is incredible. And, having worked at Amazon and know the history of Amazon, it's similar data to what they used to provide to vendors only as a part of a premium package that brands would actually have to pay an incremental percent in their co-op fees for. So now we're getting basket analysis. We're seeing substitute and comparison products, but also you're able to see the search frequency rank, it's like the inverse of what you think. The lower the number, the more frequent it's actually searched on Amazon. So in terms of tools, I find that to be one of the most important in terms of laying your foundation and groundwork when either rebooting or designing a product detail page from scratch. I'm in brand analytics myself, even on a daily basis, and my account managers basically live there. Other tools that are really important. So Amazon sponsored brand and sponsored display ads have gotten a reboot this year. Sponsored brand ads now have video capabilities as well as you can incorporate custom creative. So it's going back to the importance of visual storytelling. As I think of Amazon, there's like the technical strategy and then the creative strategy, and you have to have both work together. Both are very important. Like the technical helps get visibility. The creative is what actually sells the product at the end of the day. As it pertains to posts, which they used to be called beta posts, but now they're a boring name called post. Those are interesting. We have them on all of our clients. You are limited to the number of posts that you can have, but I definitely advise taking advantage of it because if your brand doesn't have it, then another brand that's using posts will actually show up. It's only available, like you can only see it on the mobile device, but it, just take some high performing images from your Instagram and upload them and you're done in a few minutes. Amazon Attribution. Now, this is a program that, to be honest, and hopefully no one from Amazon's on this webinar, we've had some difficulties with. It doesn't seem to be accurate. I know that the team is working really hard, but based on conversations I've had, one of the big issues with Amazon Attribution is that it can't currently track, or at least accurately track, in-app engagement. So if you're running Facebook ads or Instagram ads and you try and use Amazon Attribution, you're going to get some crazy numbers. If people have had success with it, I'd love to hear those stories. I think it can work right now if you're driving traffic, or if you want to maybe track cannibalization of having a cookie on your own website and seeing if consumers are going from your website and then purchasing on Amazon. But I still think, while the concept is really exciting, I think it came out like last July or August, there's definitely some bugs to be worked out in that program. So to be honest, we really haven't scaled it up because we've tested it across at least, I'd say 60% of our clients, and every client's like, what's this data? And this is an old tool, but it's a tool that we're seeing increasingly have more volume, which is the importance of a storefront. So the storefront used to be one of those things where you had it, it was there, but consumers didn't really know how to find it. Now with the increase of sponsored brand placement, so now, historically sponsored brands were only at the top of the SERP. Now they have new placements where on certain categories below the fold, there'll actually be a section that says similar brands, and then you can click into their storefront. As well as we've slowly started to see that instead of on product detail pages, instead of it just saying the product name, it says visit product name storefront. So they're driving more traffic that way. And, you know, they've also done collaborations with their celebrity storefronts to try and build that out. You know, even in the fashion category, they did a collaboration with Vogue. So there's definitely some more tools, and I can clearly talk all day on this. So
Storefronts are awesome. Agreed.
yeah. So we're at 3 o'clock. What I would love to do is closing remarks. So, you know, Jarrett, let's start with you of your final words with food and beverage and e-commerce.
Okay. So I think we are in a new normal that everybody knows exists. And I think as we look back on this current time, we're going to realize that it started a couple months ago, and the trends from a year, 2 years, 3 years ago are all going to make a lot of sense. And we're going to look back at this current time and be like, okay, that's why we're doing this way now, because of this current time that we're in right now. So I want to kind of start by saying to everybody, I hope that everybody who's watching this or will watch this, and everybody on and YouTube as well, I hope we're all safe during COVID. I hope that your families haven't been impacted. I hope everybody's healthy, because if you are healthy and we do get through this, this could be one of the most important years of our lives. The future was heading this way, and this is something that just really got to ramp up the speed at which the digital revolution could take place. There are so many more people that never bought anything online on Amazon, never had Amazon accounts, that now live by it. And so as opposed to waiting for the vaccine to happen to get back to the way things were 6 months ago, it's time to, as Steve Jobs said, and I'm going to butcher the words, but like, let's not think about tomorrow. Let's about yesterday. Let's start creating today. And we have to look at what's going on today and say, let's create the best way to reach consumers, the best way to create customer experiences that are reminiscent of things that we did in the past, but we have to do it in this new future world. And as Darwin said, the most evolved species is not the strongest, it's the one that's most willing to adapt. And we all have to adapt our businesses right now. And I think the best way to be successful is to assume that not much is going to change, and how can we be effective right now? And then as things do gradually get back, we can adapt to change and evolve and bring back some of the older business habits that we had, and then combine them with everything that we're learning right now. So good luck to everybody.
That was awesome, Jarrett. And I second everything that you said in terms of, you know, we have to take everything that we know right now and build our businesses for today, because this is going to last for a long time, months, if not years, to some effect. And I think what's really effective is really for all of us in the food and beverage space. First off, we have to make sure, like you're saying, we're all healthy. Then how do we make our business survive and pivot through this? We're going to have to really innovate on trial and getting people to taste products when you can't do in-store samples. And then once people try your product, making sure that it's accessible. And then once it's accessible, that you build a relationship with your consumers as best possible, so that you can build that into loyal customers who continue to come back to your product day in and day out, and then start to tell others as well. I think it's also a good time to reevaluate, you know, if your product is fit and designed for today's world, and how, if not, how can you tweak it to better understand, you know, how you can meet the current problems of today. Because ultimately the best problem or the best products solve real problems for your customers. And so really understand what those problems are, if people are having them, and how you can best serve them. And I think with that, you'll have a great product and a great business from it.
Awesome. Well, thank you both for participating today. I think we touched on a lot of amazing points. everything from, COVID really being the accelerant in e-commerce, specifically for the food and beverage category. It's done that for a lot of categories, but I think it gave the kick in the butt that the grocery category kind of needed. And I'm going to be really curious too if consumers become more health conscious. Those trends were always there. Being on coastal cities, right, New York or California or wherever, we think everyone eats healthy and everyone is health conscious. But I'm from Michigan originally. Trust me, that's not the case. And also people are cooking at home more. So I think grocery shopping as well, whether it be online or in person, there's going to be those like home recipe trends and other ways that people can then enhance the nutritional value of the meals that they're cooking themselves. So thank you again. We will be putting this recording up on YouTube. So if there were any points that you missed, you'll be able to access them there. And we'll be sharing everything on our LinkedIn and emailing everyone with the link. So thank you again for everyone who attended, and we wish you all the best.